Growing up, my dad always preached the importance of family. And from an early age, I was drawn to the brotherhood of the FDNY. I enjoyed that they gained much respect, the fire department, and that they were considered family men, always willing to help others. I must say I was also attracted to the big red trucks with the flashing lights and the loud sirens. And in December of 1985, when I was sworn in as a firefighter, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. For 6 years, I worked as a firefighter in downtown Manhattan before I was able to switch over to a rescue company, Rescue Company 5, based on Staten Island, considered one of the elite companies in the FDNY. During my 10 years there, prior to 9/11, I had always thought I had seen and done it all. On September 11th, I woke up early that morning with my wife, Cynthia, still asleep. I remember getting dressed for work. I peered in on my 2-month-old son, John, still asleep in his crib. And then looked in on my 6-year-old son, Billy, still sleeping also. And that would be his first day of school that day, first day riding the school bus. I get to work just before 7 a.m., and there's my firehouse family. I remember opening the door to the firehouse, and the music was playing loud, and I knew Dougie Miller was working. And when I went to get my cup of coffee, there was French vanilla coffee mate there with a dozen bagels. That tells me Nicky Russomundo's at work. Joe Miscali was cooking French toast at the stove. I remember a small pound cake being at the table, and I knew that meant Alan Tarasowicz was working also. Our boss, Mikey Russo, comes down from upstairs, and he tells us today at 1 o'clock, we have collapse training in the Bronx. I sit down my cup of coffee at the table, and I talk with another senior man, Mike Fiore, and we're talking about events that are going to take place later that day and in the following days. And then shortly before 9, which would be the change of tours for the fire department, just before 9, we're responding to the World Trade Center. I remember in my response, seeing that second plane hit the South Tower. I remember the huge ball of flame that erupted and engulfed the towers. I had never seen that much fire before. I remember arriving on the scene and the devastation that I saw. Making my way into the Marriott Marquis Hotel, I was told by a police officer that a third plane had struck the Pentagon. I remember that really hurt at that time because I knew we were under attack in our own country at that time. I was told by a chief to make my way to the North Tower, which I did, and I began working out of the North Tower, evacuating people. When the South Tower came down, I became trapped in a stairwell in the North Tower for a while, but with the help of Sergeant Curtin and John DeLara, we were able to get out of that stairwell and began evacuating people. In total darkness, lighting up the way, and talking with John DeLara. And amidst of all that was going on, we're talking about our families, our wives and our kids. And then when it seemed like there was no one else left in that building, we decided it was time to leave. And it was 8 of us leaving together. And we were only 30 feet or so from the building when it began coming down. I remember getting blown about 40 feet into a wall and starting to get buried. And then I said goodbye to my family. I said goodbye to my wife. I said goodbye to my son, Billy. I went ahead to say goodbye to my son, John. That hurt like hell. I became buried for a while, and I remember getting the debris off of me, and it took about an hour to find my way out. I remember making it down, survived the staircase, and up the block where I reported into a fire department chief. I remember saluting him and telling him, Chief, there's been a collapse. And he told me, yeah, I know. We've lost a lot of guys here today. Get in the ambulance and get out of here. I remember being taken up to the hospital. And there at the hospital later on that evening, I was told by my brother-in-law, a firefighter also, that all the guys from Rescue 5 were missing. 12 of us working that day, and I was the only one to make it through. Then later I got a call from my wife, and she told me my Uncle Joe Driscoll had passed away on Flight 93 that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I lost most of my firehouse family that day, but I'm blessed to be able to return to my family.